So we have a very distinguished, very eminent, and very interesting panel. Let me hand over to Nilima to kick off the conversation.
Wow, so first of all, nice deep breath. I can't believe we are actually here.
Yeah.
How awesome. How awesome is that? Each one of these amazing people have been handpicked because we consider them exemplars of Shakti leadership. And I hope in the conversation we're now going to have, you'll get a little glimpse of why they are here. Okay?
Too much pressure, guys. So just be with us. Yeah.
So maybe I start with Josy since he's all set.
No.
Yes?
Whatever.
So Josy, what is it about the book? I know you've had your copy and you've been flying around with it everywhere, all the way to France and back, I hope. What is it that struck you? Anything you want to share? Maybe read from there or?
Yeah, so, I was asked to pick up, say, a para or a line, which touched me deeply. And honestly, the whole book touched me deeply. And I think the concept of the book, the idea of the balance of Shakti, the duality of Shakti touched me. I mean, I've always believed in the fluidity of power and not the solidity of power. And for me, this book represents that. I wish it was a little more liquid. But yeah, so that was beautiful. And there was this one small line that touched me even more than anything else. Not that the others did, it was beautiful. But it says here, the vulnerability piece. Is that something you guys thought about, like deeply? I mean, I know I'm picking up something randomly and it's like a drop in the ocean, and the ocean's so much bigger than the drop, and yet the drop affects me deeply. Your vulnerability is precious. Your wound keeps you real, in touch with all the creative potential awaiting you. It is not your weakness, it is your glory, your doorway to your true strength. So vulnerability, I want to touch upon that because all my life I've been vulnerable because of my tremor. I get caught in every airport by every sort of custom guy, by the security guy. I'm always vulnerable. I mean, I'm trying to understand where this is. But somewhere it's kind of helped me because in a way, when you're vulnerable, you are a receiver. Because everyone's kind of saying, hey, I've got to give this guy something so that he stabilizes, And in my very first job, when I presented my first piece of work, the layout was trembling. And everyone said, shit, if we don't say yes to his idea, he's going to collapse. So they approved my idea. Okay? And say, for me that was strength, man. What was once, what everyone thought was a weakness was my strength.
Yes.
And on a different sort of note, recently when we did Share the Load, if you look at the father in that ad, he's an authoritarian. If you look at him, he comes, he has this, and I know I should have shared the film. You guys have not seen it. Some of you may have seen it, It was shared. It's probably India's most widely circulated ad. It's like, it's something we can't believe what happened to it. But anyway, the casting, the father is an authoritarian. He has never said sorry in his life. He's never seen himself as vulnerable ever. But we wanted to create change, and to create change, you have to create vulnerability. We wanted that father, that authoritarian to break down. Because if he doesn't break down, the system remains rigid. And we wanted the system to break so that people will say, it's okay, man. It's okay to say sorry. And it's okay to move on. Because if you don't, there's no change. And for us, it was important that there be change. And that's what we try and do with our work. And for us, vulnerability is important because vulnerability is change. Vulnerability is a mother who accepts things because she wants change. Yeah.
Woo. Thank you. Wow. So now you know why he's a Shakti exemplar. And Raj loves that line as well. Do you want to share that?
Well, yeah. So, Nilima, this is really Nilima's. As with the entire book, I'm just sort of a passenger, I think, on this. No, but really, I learned so much from her, and on this idea of vulnerability, where she used the phrase, it's an ability, it's not a liability. It's right in the word itself, right? It's vulnerability. And I think that's a very powerful thing, because without vulnerability, there cannot really be authentic connection across people. I've seen leadership teams where until the leader decided to open up and share something truly human about himself, there was no real gelling between the team. And once he did that, once he set the bar of disclosure at a certain level, then everybody can rise to that. If the leader doesn't go there, then everybody stays here. So I think, especially for leaders, to be willing to be vulnerable, to know that you don't have all the answers, to know that you've got your own human quality, I think is extremely important. And that then it gives permission to others to also be human.
Thank you. So Viji, how do you feel about sharing something from the book, and could you relate it to a real life experience for yourself?
If somebody had asked me 40 years ago where I saw myself, I would never have seen myself here, or as somebody leading a team, or running an organization. I was like, my children were very small, and I was very happy to be a homemaker, and so this job opportunity was kind of thrust on me, and so something what I read here. I read your book in bits and pieces. Actually, I haven't not read it from page to page, because it asks you to read it like that. You just open it somewhere, and then there's a nugget, and then you open it somewhere else, and there's another gem. So what hit me first was this, the hero's journey. The hero's journey starts with becoming more self-aware, understanding who you are and what's actually going on in your life. The only way out is in. The only way to answer the call to adventure is to go deep into yourself, because no one else can do this for you. The power, the resources, everything you need to make the journey are to be found inside you and nowhere else. And then the page before that, you quote Sri Aurobindo. All the world's possibilities in man are waiting as the tree waits in its seed. So when today, when I look at myself, I realize that for whatever I needed, I actually had to look really inside myself. And inside each of us, there is that, there is this never-ending font, you kind of keep that as your deep inner reserves, and you would want to delve into it only for something or some people very special. Now, I suddenly found myself with a file, the names of 22 cancer patients who were facing a diagnosis of a terminal, of a fatal disease, and before I knew it, that file kind of bludgeoned into like 18,500 today, and where there was just me to look after a few patients, I now have an amazing team of 20 people, divide these patients among them, so each young person looks after a segment of, say, 1,000 plus patients, and these are patients who are living with cancer. And it's very strange that when we were sitting here at this place, that what's on my board is a quotation from J.R.D. Tata. He says if there's any merit in him, it's because it's of his ability to get along with people according to their ways and characteristics. And then he says it's painful because you have to suppress yourself sometimes. And he says you can only lead people with affection. So that was the way I chose. I've always found myself, I've always identified myself, thought of myself as the mother of my 2 children. And it's when that layer of the mother came off that I actually, this sounds so contrary, but that's when I found freedom. I mean, all of us, I'm sure you would, recognize this. When you're 17 or 18, you know who you are, the kind of persona inside you. And then, you want to do, I wanted to be the way I knew I was then, gregarious, loud, I wanted to wear lipstick, and my mother said, after your marriage. I wanted to wear a sleeveless blouse, and my aunt said, after your marriage. And then, yes, then I got married, and then the wife layer came on, and then the daughter-in-law layer, maybe the daughter-in-law before the wife, and then the mother layer. When the mother layer came on, my daughter layer peeled off, because then I was my mother's peer. She's a mother. That layer came off, and, well, the daughter-in-law layer, a little while, But when the mother layer, when my children no longer needed me to be around to nourish them and to care for them, that freedom, I love my children I love them. But you know what? I have them out of my hair now. And I could be who I was. And then, of course, I found this whole new family that I care for. It's very sweet of you to say that my patients, everybody calls me Amma. So it's not that I ran away from motherhood, but it was that maybe that's the Shakti you're talking about. Maybe that's what it is. And so I've just kind of gone day to day from year to year, and it's been like so many years now, and learning all the time. Feel extremely proud also, feel extremely humbled, feel very blessed. And so that's it. It's within us. Whatever we need is within us.
Thank you, Viji. Thank you. We received all that. Thank you. Rajeev, my Guru Bhai. We just discovered that I'm a Shivananda teacher, yoga teacher, and he's trained with Satyananda, and so we are Guru Bhais, and so I feel very connected. I'd love to hear what you have to share.
Sure. The first thing to do is to stop being a victim and take on the role of a creator instead by reframing the whole thing. Take responsibility for the situation and your experience of it. We often tell other people to change, but that rarely works. What does work for you is for you to shift internally, change your energy, start to carry your power and your weight on your own 2 feet without leaning on someone. I wanted to give a very safe example, but I think I'm going to take a jump and expose myself.
Yes.
Be very dangerous. I worked 29 years for the Tatas, and one day I left. And I was really feeling bad, victimized, horrible. And there was one person who had my hatred. And then one day I had an epiphany, and I said, hello, first surrender. Accept the fact, and for God's sake, realize that there is nothing out there, it's all inside you. Take responsibility. Remember that you created, and the world changed. And I focused on tomorrow. And here I am. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Rajeev, I'm so grateful. You took the moment.
Yeah, I came prepared with a different story.
I know, I can feel it. Thank you. Thank you. So inspiring for each one of us to access our vulnerability. Jeroo. So the reason Jeroo is here is because she, I believe, has single-handedly ignited 1,500 women, at least. And these are Shakti, awakened Shaktis out in the world, all over the world, media women doing amazing, amazing work. And we're talking about Shakti leadership. Here is someone who has lived it and made it come true.
Thank you. I wanted to quote from Carol Stern, actually, where she says, I think for a long time power was defined as money. For me, and this is where I agree, and this is my thought too, power is about the ability to bring about change and have impact. She says, where I think I'm powerful, what I've done in the world, I've helped raise a lot of money, that's great. But I've also changed how people feel about coming to work. That is really powerful to me. I've helped my children to see that the world is bigger than themselves. That is really powerful to me. I really think that this is the definition of power, being able to impact others. As for me, I think my joy lies in the fact that I've helped my students to see that the world is bigger than themselves. There are so many now who are absolutely at the top of the ladder. They're all, CEOs and editors and chief editors and everything in very large media corporations. But at the same time, they've embodied that sense of the yin and the yang and balanced their own feminine energy with a very strong masculine energy to rise to the top in a very strong male-dominated society. I was influenced largely by two thinkers, Paulo Freire and J. Krishnamurti. Theory of reflection and practice, reflection and action I tried to bring to the classroom, both in relationship with my students, where I encourage them to think independently and not just parrot things by rote, but I encourage them to do the same, make others independent when they left out, so that they can in turn empower others. Lower socioeconomic groups, women, people with disabilities, etc. And I would do it through a technique where I would actually make them work on audiovisuals or films. So one of them went and made a film on water. They visited Domkedi. They saw how the benefits would accrue only to the rich farmers. They actually saw this and they actually witnessed it. So naturally, they saw that they were moved by villagers willing to die for the cause. They were inspired by Medha Patkar. And I believe that it's working on these kind of projects that inspires them to change, and the greatest learning takes place, it's outside of the classroom. So these Shakti values are mentioned constantly in Raj and Nilima's books. And of course, to this end, I began my own exploration and journey in Vipassana, which is going within and trying to understand myself. And yes, I've been through many of these journeys, vulnerability and all of that personally as well. But I loved what one of my students said about me. She said, she was praised by someone. So I said, I was very pleased to hear that she was praised. So she said, yes, it's because of your elegant whiplashes. So I thought the elegant was to do with the Shakti part and the whiplashes had to do with the masculine part. So there was the yin and yang, which really was, I think, in a good balance. And today I'm reaping the reward of what I've sowed. I've seen the seeds that I've planted blossom into wonderful people who are doing far greater things than I could ever have done. I stand at the edge of the arena and watch my students perform amazing acts of Shakti leadership. They're at the top, not with aggression, but compassion, or actually a blend of both. The yin and the yang. It brings me immense joy, but of course I have only been a catalyst. This is where I feel I am so proud, so happy, so contented, and of course Nilima is also my student.
Thank you, Jeroo. Thank you.
I'm Stephen, Marketing and Communication Specialist. This goes to someone I admire a lot, Josy Paul. Today's advertising and marketing persons, under the pressures of consumerism, client pressures, create a brand overnight. How do you balance the feminine, masculine? How do you handle the Shakti leadership with so many pressures?
Wow, that's big, man. To be honest, I don't think about all these things. It's something you spoke about. You respond to the now. And you respond to the now with a certain purpose that you have within you. And nobody gave it to you. Maybe everybody gave it to you and nobody gave it to you. And it was yours. You made it. You have a purpose. You wrote it for yourself when you started out in your career, and now you're living by that code. You don't share that code because that code is yours and you're driven by it. And so it allows you to rise above a lot of things because, one of the things you spoke about is purpose, the why. And that's so important because there are so many forces that are affecting you and you want those forces to move you and you don't want to be rigid. But somewhere there's something which is very core that allows you to, do things that people don't understand why you're doing it. And that is important for me. So when when we take stuff on, when we do work for big brands, we understand that there is a commercial interest and that profit is as important. But purpose is as important too, because that's what you guys talk about. And for us, it's not that I read a book and this was part of it. It's because of the things that I've seen in life and the things that my friends told me and the world that affected me, that I found something. And now I live by that code. And that code allows me to do work like what we do. So when I stand in front of a client who has tremendous pressures of commerce, we do tell them that we are not here to just do a pure sort of purpose-driven work. This purpose has profit written all over it. And that any brand has within it the ability to do both. You can do both, because when I saw what happened years ago when there was an iodine shortage and the government decided that you got to pass it through salt, it didn't reduce the effect of salt. It gave you salt and it gave you iodine. It gave you two things at the same time. And I thought, can advertising be a medium where you can sell, but you can also create new values that create a better world? So we do that. Yeah.
My name is Manish Wadhwa. I've run something in Australia called Humanity in Business, which has very much been inspired by Raj and the work he's doing with conscious capitalism. So I'm really passionate about leadership, and I love the conversation on Shakti Leadership. It's amazing. So my question is really around, in Mahindra, is how do you actually take something like this kind of leadership and take it right down through the entire organization and get it embedded even to right from the leadership right down to the lowest level? Is that possible, or how is that being done?
Okay. How many seconds do I have to answer this question?
You've lost 5 of them already.
There's no constraint on the panelists excepting for the thirst of the audience.
So I'll try to keep it very simple. Mostly it's by the behavior of our people. Are they walking the things that we want them to do? And of course, we back it up with all the HR levers and KRAs, and so there's a lot of process, system, metrics. But essentially, it is, are the leaders, and leaders are not necessarily only Anand and a few of us at the top, but are people walking the talk? And and I feel almost embarrassed to say it, and that really is the fear that I have. We have defined a 3+5 framework, and we actually use it in the performance management system, we use it in the talent management system, we have huge amount of 360 feedback, and this 3+5 are various behaviors that we have identified will bring to life the core purpose that we use to guide business decision making. So that's how we do it, but in short, we have processes, systems, and metrics in the HR levers to support the core purpose that we are trying to live in our businesses and in our behaviors, but we depend upon the behavior of our leaders. Are they walking the talk? And there's nothing more powerful than that.
Hi, I'm Rashmi. I'm an arts entrepreneur, so I'll quickly skip to the question with that. It's something that I've been responding to actually for the last year and a half. I'm at an age where a lot of my friends, especially female friends, are moving into leadership positions. So this is partly for them. Your book and whatever I heard this evening largely talks about a personal journey when it comes to leadership. But what happens when you are in a context where powerlessness comes from the construct? So where I'm coming from is the idea of sexual discrimination at the workplace and gender inequality at the workplace, especially for women, where you're talking about aspects of vulnerability and all of these qualities which are privileged in this conversation.
Yeah.
And when you face those barriers at the workplace because of precisely those qualities.
So the short answer to that, Rashmi, is what I heard Raj say once: change the company or change the company. We always have choice. And if you find yourself in a powerless context, then change it or leave it. We have to create the change, and it goes right back to everything we discussed here, that we have so much power, but it's the elephant in the room, we don't see it, and we are not leveraging it. Power is never going to be given to us. We're going to have to claim it and earn it. We have to reclaim our power, actually. So it's up to us. If you feel powerless, it's up to you to move into a creator position with that. And we do have a framework in this called From Drama to Dharma. So, yeah.
Nilima, could I read a quote as well,
Yes.
if you don't mind? We interviewed a lot of amazing leaders, mostly women, but some men as well for this book. And one of them is Lynn Twist, who started the Pachamama Alliance, which brings together ancient wisdom along with modern wisdom, and also wrote a book called The Soul of Money.
Hello.
And I'll just quote from her. Something that's happening right now in the world is what I call the Sophia century. The century when women will take their rightful role in equal partnership with men. There's a wonderful prophecy from the Native American people called the prophecy of the eagle. It says that for many centuries the bird of humanity has been flying primarily with one wing, and that wing is the male wing. The female wing has not been fully extended, it's been held back and not been fully expressed, while the male wing, in order to keep the bird of humanity afloat, has gotten overdeveloped and has actually become violent. And the bird of humanity has been flying in circles as a result. This is the century when the female wing of humanity, or feminine expression, will fully extend itself. When it does so, the male wing will be able to relax, and the bird of humanity will soar rather than fly in circles. That metaphor is so moving because it doesn't make men wrong. I feel that in myself. When I'm fully expressed in both the energy of the masculine and feminine parts of who I am, I soar. I soar as a leader, I soar as a follower, I soar as a human being. When I'm withheld or stymied or feel oppressed or weak as a woman and try to compensate by using my male energy too much, I fly in circles. So I think it's a beautiful metaphor to think about, the fact that we have operated as a species with less than half of our capacity. And this is the time, the 19th century was about the end of slavery, and the 20th was about the end of totalitarianism. This is the century when we end this neglect and repression and suppression of the feminine in men and women. I think it's a very exciting time to be alive, actually.